Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about how I made my first 100 divines in Crucible League. Now, over the last few days, we've been farming quite a bit. I would say in total, we have around about 130-ish divines between the build, between raw divines, chaos, which I don't want to convert just yet, fusings I'm probably going to need for the next build. But in general, we're pretty well set up now. Now, when it comes to goals, I want to safe start into a league. When it comes to builds later, when it comes to strats later, that's all fine. But as everybody knows, the foundation of a league is getting the first bit of currency. The first 50 divines or whatever are the hardest. Once you have your build set up and you feel like you're on top of the world, you can buy all the scarabs, you can buy all the sextants. That's the easy part, right? The hard part is at the start and you don't want to screw that up. That's why I usually go really safe on my first strat. Also low investment, which basically just means no expensive sextants, no expensive scarabs, stuff like that. And I also don't want this to be an RNG fiesta. This is not me telling you to go into Crimson Temple and hope for that Mage Blood card week 1 and maybe even gamble it and just get lucky. Everything in this video is reachable with a league starter. So what are the money makers? We have some really safe ones with Expedition and Essence. We have Red Altars, pretty straightforward. We have Short Deli, something I actually want to explain here because I think it's a little bit underused. And then we also have a little bit of a talk about the league mechanic and how I personally made quite a bit of money with it. Actually, a lot more than I thought. Now, first up, let's talk about Expedition. As for passive tree, it's pretty straightforward. All the good stuff, Buried Knowledge, Ancient Writings, Distinguished Demolitionist. Up here, we go for Danik and for Tujen. If you are somebody who's good with ROG, you can definitely do that instead of Tujen if you want to. And then we're also taking the Hunt for Answers down here for all the extra chance to get an Expedition encounter. In total, I think we're at around about 70%, and that is because we are not using any scarabs. Now, to give you a little bit more context about Expedition, let's look through it real quick, because a ton of people are doing it wrong and not making the most currency they could. You want to hit the runic monsters and maps. Way too many people are focusing on remnants. Remnants are important, sure, but runic monsters are the only ones where you can actually drop logbooks. And logbooks sell from 10C to 1 divine apiece, depending on how they roll. So that is incredibly important. Runic monsters are these big skulls, right? They're kind of like straight up, and at the end, there's this big skull right here. You want to hit all of these with your explosives. Nothing else, chests or anything, can drop logbooks. These are the only source. They're also the only source of stacks of the reroll currency, so that is also quite a thing. From chests, I think you can only get 1 or 2. From these, you can actually get 3 or 4. So those are the most important. Now, when it comes to remnants, which are these things here with an upside and a downside, the biggest thing you want to look for is increased logbook chance. Once again, to kind of get more logbooks. Then the chance to drop stack decks, it's a very nice remnant. You're usually going to get around about 4 to 10 stack decks just from 1 remnant. And they currently sell for like, I don't know, over chaos. And then at the end, you want to go for quantity of artifacts and pack size. Pack size just gives you more mobs for more stuff to drop. And then quantity of artifacts you will need later at the vendors. And here's the catch, something almost everybody does wrong. Don't overdo it with remnants, right? I just want to show you this right here. These 3 up here. So quantity of items dropped by monsters, that's a good one, right? Contains an actual fractured item, nobody cares. Increased rarity, mostly useless. Has a chance to drop an additional rare armor, absolutely like rancid, really bad, right? And people just take them, right? Because they're there and they think they're good, but they're not, right? You're just getting downside after downside. So what's going to happen is you're going to die a lot more, which is not a good thing, especially at league start if your character isn't built yet. So if you can't do one, just skip it. If it doesn't have any of these 3 in it, you should also probably skip it. As for vendors, now I have some tips and tricks and some old videos. I don't know how outdated they are, so they're there if you want to find them. But the 2 traders that you want are Tujen and Danik. Danik is basically the guy who sells you logbooks and also the guy who sells you reroll currency, and he gives you transfer costs, which means normally he gives you the chance to convert these artifacts 1-to-1 to whatever other artifact you want. But if you're rolling down here, you always get 1 to 3 cheaper conversions. For example, this one, for 1 exceptional sun, I would only pay 0.6 of these, so I can convert for cheap. What you want to go for here is the black scythe currency, but you don't have to overdo it, right? What you're looking for down here is exotic coinage. Scrap metal is okay, but you're mostly obviously looking for logbooks. Now, I would say that this makes you always a ton of money to just use your own burial medallions, but if you're unsure, don't do it. But in general, if you do it, just buy exotic coinage. Don't buy Astragalis. That is the only currency down here you don't want to buy. Now, when it comes to Tujen, which is the most important vendor, at least for this strategy, first tip, you can actually use your scroll wheel to bet. Second thing, when you're doing this, there's a ton of stuff you want to buy. Let me put this. Maybe he's going to say yes at 66. Oh, no, he wants a new offer. Okay, maybe let's go to 73. You don't want to be this guy. If that's you, if you enjoy it, sure. But I'm just going to tell you, you're better off just selling your exotic coinage and never engaging with Tujin. What you want to do is you kind of want to get a grasp, sort of what's worth in the economy currently. For example, chromatic orbs are good right now. Blessed orbs are good right now, right? Regrets are good right now. And what you want to do is simply do this, right? You don't really care about haggling that much. You want to be like just boom, 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 right? If he wants to haggle, then just give him whatever he wants. You can do this, right? Probably don't buy the splinters, right? This is just an example. So let me reroll. All right, 5 chaos, boom, boom, okay, boom, boom. This is just an example. This is not what you should be buying. That's actually terribly weird, but you know what I mean. I'm not saying this to come across as an elitist. I'm saying it because you're going to farm a ton of these exotic coinage and you're going to go nuts. You could be sitting here for like 4 hours if you just do it really slowly. So I'm just going to tell you that you'd rather be quick with this than just methodically, because you could be in the next map and make more currency. A very important thing to look out for when you do Tujin is the economy here on the right side. There's 4 types of artifacts: lesser, greater, grand, exceptional. And when you see this item window on the very right side, it starts with lessers, right? It goes this. And so at some point, it's going to go into greaters. So here, it starts costing greaters, right? So this is the lowest currency. Then we go into greaters. Let's see how many cost greaters. Yeah, and then we go into grand, and maybe at the end, there's also exceptional. In this case, there's only grand. So this is kind of how you have to see it. So what can happen, right, is you reroll and you spend too much of one currency. And if that happens, you're going to be starving on that currency. And if you reroll and all of a sudden you can't use one of your currencies anymore, your rerolls are kind of wasted. You might have to roll through stack decks, stacks of chaos orbs. So you always want to be mindful of that and kind of even them out over time. This is also why I would usually not start out gambling with Danik, because you could be later wanting to convert a certain thing and maybe already spend it on something else. So you can kind of do it in tandem. Definitely use Danik's conversion in your favor. Then let's talk about our second money maker, which is essences. The most important thing, as you can see here, my tap is basically clean at this point. This is the first point that I always get every single league. Essences don't sell. Why do people think that? Because they don't know how to bulk sell and they don't know how to price. The thing is, this would be way too long for this video, but if you want to check it out, I have a bulk sell guide down in the description. Essences always sell, every single league. It's not about what the meta is. Essences will always be meta. They will always be part of the crafting economy. What you're doing wrong is you're overpricing your essences. In the grand scheme of things, right, you don't want to reprice all the time because you went too high. You want to be in maps again, right? You want to have fun. You want to kill mobs. You want to make more currency. So adjusting your price to be a little bit less will give you better outcomes in general. So for example, if you see that an essence for 10 you could get 50 chaos and you put it to 49 or even 48 or 47, that's not going to be a big loss for you and you're probably going to sell it instantly. If you don't believe me, come to one of my selling streams. It's the same thing every single time because I do a lot of essence stuff. Now, when it comes to corrupting essences, you definitely want to use remnants of corruptions on your essences. More on that in the map run walkthrough, but basically, the first essence you want to corrupt is Misery, Envy, Dread, Scorn. Those are these 4 right here, kind of purplish color. And you do that because they can turn into corrupted essences when applied with a remnant of corruption. The other thing that I usually corrupt is essence mobs that have 5 or more essences on them. It's a little bit more complex because the way it works is you duplicate your essences if there is at least one shrieking there. So sometimes if there's only shriekings, you actually don't want to corrupt because then they all turn into deafenings and you don't duplicate them. As for essence on the passive tree, it's pretty straightforward. We take all the essence clusters that you would think. I'm not taking the remnant corruption chance because I feel like it's actually not worth it. When an essence has an extra remnant of corruption, you do get that, but you also lose the chance of applying a remnant of corruption. So sometimes that makes you miss out on essence of horrors and stuff like that. Overall, it felt like it's actually a net downside. That's also why I'm not using the sextant, but I could be wrong. Doing tests like that is really difficult. And then obviously amplified energy. So if you're somebody who's more methodical about this, who actually wants to think about that while mapping, go for it. I usually just go with the flow. And if it has 5 or more essences, I usually press a remnant on it. Now then I want to quickly talk about short deli because some people are confused what I mean by that. Usually when people think about deli, they think about super juicing, right? They think about sextants, scarabs, get as many mobs as possible, get blight, abyss, breach, all the good stuff, and then also get as many rewards as possible. Well, what we're doing here is actually we get to 5 rewards, and then we dip. I'm still in my league starter. I can't do 100% deli. I can do like tropical island deli. So what we're doing is we're maximizing deli for what it does best, and that is actually Delirium orbs as well. So Delirium orbs are quite easy to get. In total, I think I had a little bit over 100, I think 120 or something. In total, I think they sold for 6 divines, if I remember correctly, or was it 5? And we don't have that much investment into it. The reason you do 5 rewards is actually because that's where you get your 3rd reward, right? If no extra rewards are triggering, you start out with 1 reward. At 3, you get a 2nd. And at 5, you get a 3rd. And this just spits out Delirium orbs like crazy, and we're not investing anything. All we have from the Atlas passive tree is a raw 50% chance, right? We are already taking this thing, right? Fungal remission, secular focus. We're blocking all of these things that already give us plus 2% chance. We have Stream of Consciousness, and then we take this whole wheel for the chance for Mirror of Delirium. Every second map, we get a free deli without investment, so we don't want to make our maps longer than we have to. Another reason is obviously that splinters are worth very little right now. For 300 splinters, you get a Simulacrum, and they're currently at like 38 chaos, which is, yeah, very low. Nowadays, with how easy it is to get that up to 300, it is quite low, so no reason to make our map longer. We're basically just using it as a little bit of spice to sprinkle in, and it's all about the deli orbs and the rewards themselves. Now, next up, altars are incredibly important. On the red altars with minion rewards, you can get quite a lot of just raw chaos orbs, orbs of unmaking, awakened sextants, all the decent currency. You're going to get quite a bit of them. On blue altars, however, what you will get is mostly trash, and then one time every few days, you'll get divines. Right now, people would say that red altars are better. I'm going to tell you why, even if that weren't the case, and on average the blue would win out, I would still go red. The main reason is on red, I don't have to read anything. If I have 2 to 3 altars every map that I have to read through and meticulously like decide what I take, that's not good. You don't have to do that on red. You always pick minion if you can, and you always pick boss if you cannot, because the global ones are very scary. They have meteors, and they're usually not very good until you have high investment strategies. So that is very easy in a long farming session. The reason you can't do that with the blue altars is you might miss divines, obviously. You have to read the boss rewards, you have to read the mob rewards. So in general, for me, red is just an absolute no-brainer. Also, red mobs pop up immediately, whereas blue mobs kind of have a delay. The only thing about red mobs is, while a lot of people are dying, is they actually forget to get Soul of Aberrath for the Burning Ground immunity. Burning Ground is rough. Even on a Pathfinder with like 3,000 life regen for my life flask per second, it can go through the degen. So definitely take that. Otherwise, there's actually not much more to say about this. I guess what we could talk about real quickly, Wrath of the Cosmos is incredibly strong, but has a harsh downside. I actually started out without Wrath of the Cosmos, and obviously you get quite a bit less currency, but it's still better than dying all the time. So that is definitely a thing. You could also go for Baptized by Fire. It didn't seem that great. I think this is more for like a boss rushing strategy. But now let's talk about the league mechanic. So league mechanic is very simple in a way when you engage with it in maps, but also very complicated once it comes to crafting them. So maybe in a video down the road, we're going to do that. But right now, what I did is somebody recommended me to go for thicket bows. Toxic Rain is big, EA is still big, and a lot of LE-based bow builds also want thicket bows. So there's quite a few things that you can hit on these. Now, what you can do on your filter to show these thicket bows is you can actually go to Filter Blade right here if you're using it as well. You can go to actually Harvest, early endgame Harvest crafting, jump to it, and then what you do is add a thicket bow here. So we do this, right? Thicket bow, add, and then whatever's in here, you can delete that or you can leave it whatever you want. If you want several bases, do that as well. Just see that your inventory is not cluttered. They're going to drop quite a lot because you don't need anything special. It can be white, it can be blue, whatever. And then you just basically cook them with the lead mechanic. Now, in my opinion, the best way to go about it, once you cook them once and reveal the passive tree, for example, let's take this as a random example. My opinion, the best way to do it is just throw it in the dump tab and then price it for a certain price. For example, you have 49. I'm going to price it down over time. And the reason for that is you actually don't really know what people want. There's some very easy ones, like +2 levels or high flat damage. But sometimes people are using them simply to combine. They're just buying them to get their GG bow ready. And they just want to sacrifice this whatever bow they're buying. And it's just that the right node is in the right place, right? There's a grid. I'm going to talk about it in another video. It's kind of weird. But all I have to say is that never count out whatever you cook up. Just throw them in there and price them down over time. As for what maps will run, it actually doesn't matter that much. There are certain maps that are better made than others. But in general, whatever you have fun with, do it. I really like Beach, for example. Beach is also next to a meta map right now. A lot of people have been farming jungle values, right? Snoopy has made quite a few videos over the last 2 leagues, I think. So Jungle Valley basically makes it so you can't get the boss altars, which means you're always going to get global or minion rewards, which is quite advantageous. In general, I'm not a huge fan unless you're juicing, because minion rewards, while they're good, it's not worth going for Jungle Valley. It has a delayed boss. It doesn't have that many mobs, but it's still good. And it is next to Beach, which is one of my favorite maps that is now finally back. In general, whatever you want to, right? You can do it on Cemetery, you can do it on Canyons, something that has a good divination card in general. I also have all Watchstones, but it's not really necessary because I'm not really using Sextons at all. So in general, very flexible to what you want. Just make sure that whatever map you run is at least tier 14, because otherwise you cannot use these up here. You either go Eater of Worlds or Searing Exarch, although I would definitely recommend Exarch. Now, the only bit of investment that I would recommend into this strat is use the Essence on the map device. It is 100% worth. It is a huge money maker. Costs you 3 chaos per map. You can start out not using it, but it's definitely advantageous. But all right, let's just start it out. We're Alkin going, right? We have a beach. The only thing you can add that wouldn't call it Alkin go would be the Essence on the map device. We chiseled, we alked, boom. Roll for whatever mod you don't want. Zeroing Exarch is important. And then you just go in. Also, don't forget to have your remnants up on the right side, so you can kind of use it whenever there's an Essence. And in this case, we did get a Mirror of Delirium. It's a 50-50 chance, so let's just get into it. As always, it's really easy. You just want to get to 5 rewards, and then you're kind of just moving on with your merry day. If you want to do Expedition in between, then definitely do it. Now, what we're looking for example, while we're killing mobs, we're already prepping here. Now, the Deli Mirror will stop, usually, unless it's bugged. Add an expedition so you can take your sweet time if you want to. Stack deck, we can already see here. We can see artifacts, right? These are actually really good remnants, so we want to explode them quite a bit. There's always these altars. Whenever I see the minion reward type, I usually take it. I don't even look at it, right? There is no high payoff reward that I could be missing, so it's fine. We're looking for these. We want to explode all of these Scully things, as I said earlier. We want to start up there. There's no logbook rewards, so we're just going to start at stack deck. And you want to get as much of these as possible. And we want to have these as late as possible, because if we stack a lot of remnants before, that will mean that all the remnants are going to stack on those bosses. Actually, we had a logbook here. I kind of overlooked that. If you sometimes make mistakes, I don't think it's worth like correcting them all that much. It's also worth to just be fast during these, right? So we're just going to activate it. As you can see right here, the Deli Mirror is stopping. We're also speccing on the passive tree into Deli, so it's a little bit slower, so that helps quite a bit as well. Now, if you can't do logbook while Deli, because it can get incredibly rippy, actually, then you should just backtrack at the end, right? It's for Beach, for example, it's not that big of a deal. I guess it depends on the layout you're running. But in general, yeah, this is what's going to happen. I don't think... Yeah, okay, we got 1 logbook. That's pretty cool. Now, the average, I would say, in terms of logbook, is you get 1 every 3 maps. But don't be discouraged if it doesn't happen for several maps. Sometimes I have a streak of like 15 maps where nothing happens, and then all of a sudden I get like, I don't know, like a map with 3, which is absolutely insane. As you can see here right now, we're still on 4 rewards, so we have to move a little bit further. With the Deli, we're just going to move on. We're dropping a lot of small gumball currency from the stuff right here. Now, we do have the... I usually don't like doing Crucible under Deli. I usually skip it if it's too early. But in a second, we get to the 5 reward, so I don't think we're going to have to backtrack. Yeah, here we are at 5. You just release it, and you get your rewards. Sometimes you get a Deli Orb, sometimes you don't. We got 1 and a little bit of small gumball currency. This one currently in bulk probably sells for like 5-6 chaos. So that's pretty nice as well. And we got a lot of free mobs, right? As for Crucible, I just took this as an example right here. We have a white thicket bow. Let's say you just picked it up. All you want to do is you want to basically charge it up until you get that first node. You don't need to charge it up fully. In fact, if you can avoid that, it's going to be a lot faster, because otherwise you're probably going to get unique mobs, and unique mobs are absurdly tanky. So you can also drop stuff from them. If you have a ton of damage, do so, but I would just go as far. So as you can see right here, I usually don't check them, but this is the tree that we got, and we're just going to throw it in that dump tab that I talked about earlier, right? Essence. So for example, something you can do is if it's just screaming and wailing, you don't really have to open them, right? They're so cheap, you can just move on and save your time. This is double shrieking. We're not going to do anything here. Now, just so I make this clear, I usually don't take time before I see an essence that much. You don't want to take that much time. This is just for an example. Now, this can sometimes happen. There's like a bug where you can't see what's going on. If that's what's happening, you can't do much about it. In this case, we would have corrupted because there's a misery here. So this could have turned into a double. Yeah, so this is, for example, Dread. We're going to corrupt this. And we got an Essence of Hysteria. Unfortunately, it's only one because the other one wasn't shrieking. So we're not going to get a copy of the Hysteria. Beach layout, pretty nice here. There's very often mobs on the side. Don't miss them. Other than that, when it comes to the boss, not really much to say other than sometimes you click through a lot of boss stuff, right? And the boss is going to be incredibly tanky. In that case, don't, like, be surprised. Sometimes the boss has, like, 80 res or something. So, yeah. Do the boss. And I think that is basically already it. Let's, I guess, just clear it real quickly. Yeah, nothing else to see. But once again, it's not the craziest. It's not the flashiest. It's a lot of small pieces that fit together and make you a lot of currency. For example, in this inventory right here, this Expedition Logbook is pretty bad. I think right now it's probably around about 15 chaos. This Essence of Hysteria is like 13 chaos or something. This is like 3 chaos. So in total, we probably made like 60, 50-ish chaos. Depending on if this sells or not, then it could be even more. So in general, it's just an easy way to farm currency and a very reliable one, no RNG involved. If you want to invest more into the strategy, there's a few things you can do. Personally, with this kind of strat, I wouldn't invest much more into sextants other than maybe the essence sextant. I'm not 100% sure. You will have to try this out yourself. Monsters imprisoned by essences have a 50% chance to contain a remnant. So in theory, that sounds good, but also every essence with a remnant on it, you can't corrupt for a corrupted essence. And sure, you get +1 essence, but you already have 3 from the map device, and then 1 from the Atlas passive tree, and then probably 1 randomly with all the chance, right? That you're gonna get from 5 to 6, that's not that huge, and this could actually be a downside. So in general, I would probably not use this compass. Unless remnant prices shoot up like crazy, then reconsider. As for scarabs, what should you use? So in my opinion, never use rusted expedition scarabs. Rusted expedition scarabs, so in bulk, let's actually see how much they cost. Rusted expedition scarabs are just kinda trash. You can get just a ton of chance on your passive tree for basically free. It's not that many points, and they cost like from 2.5 to 3 chaos in bulk. Before you use that, rather just use the passive tree. There's a ton of chance, right? And these points, while valuable, are not like worth spending 3 chaos per map to get the same result. That's my personal opinion. However, when it comes to polished scarabs, which are a lot more expensive, I wonder why. Polished scarabs are incredibly strong, but also a lot more expensive. That's a big jump for a lot of people. That's an extra 3 chaos per map, right? 5.5 chaos roundabout, and they are probably going to go up over time. For this upgrade, right? Polished expedition scarabs are great. You get extra runic monsters. The 20% increased number of explosives means you get an additional explosive. And the extra runic monsters means you get more logbooks. So if you have the money, this is definitely something to look into. In my opinion, never use Rusted, just use the Atlas passive tree. And Gilded Expedition, I wouldn't use at all in this strat. However, there's really good ones where you just juice it up like crazy with different sextants or compasses, and then Gildeds are absolutely broken. But this strat, though, they're not worth it, and they're kind of wasted. Now, one thing I want to point out, if you have Polished Expedition Scarab, you can't have more than 1 expedition per map, so all the chance to get an additional expedition encounter is useless, so respect that. But that's about it. We're now going to move on to the next build. Going to see what happens. Hope you have a lot of fun with this currency. If you had a rough start, or you're in consoles and you just started out, maybe this could help you out a little bit. And since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.